Welcome to Uncensored Beat.
I showed up. U.S. citizen is not permitted entry.
Over the next big attack.
Zelensky's seemingly fraudulent election.
Bilateral security agreement President Joe Biden signed.
Quebec, the communist capital of North America.
What do Ukrainians think about US? Some believe that the US is to blame for this war.
Hello once again to Uncensored Beat, where we provide you the unfiltered truth. My name is James on the Go Bradley.
And I'm Flor Blanco.
And today we're going to discuss an interview that was conducted between FLOR and the mayor of Huntington Beach, Surf City, USA, regarding an ordinance that just recently passed that is going against the AB 1955 bill that Governor Gavin Newsom signed into law that is for removing parental rights. FLOR, please share with the audience your discussion with the mayor.
Thanks, James. So yes, I did speak with Mayor Gracie Vandermark, and this was in response to the passing of Huntington Beach City Ordinance 4326, which is known as the Municipal Code relating to the Parent Right to Know Act. City Ordinance of Huntington Beach, known as Ordinance number 4326, considered as the Parents' Right to Know Act, it actually declares the city of Huntington Beach as a Parents' Right to Know city. So what's very interesting about this is that we have a city which is actually going up against an educational law. Generally, in regards to educational laws, cities typically don't have jurisdiction.
That's interesting. Yeah, you would think that the city would be all inclusive of anything that resides or operates within a city.
So that all is based upon how California structured its state. Based on the California Constitution, you have the educational system that's actually separate from the state legislatures and local governments. So the educational system has what you want to call a governmental system of its own, which is, of course, under the governor and under the state superintendent. And from there, policies are mandated through all the different counties and then school districts within those counties. And many times, a school district may actually, one school district may actually cross one or two or more different counties in some situations, especially within very highly populated areas like Southern California.
Yeah, I can see how they structure it that way, but I dread the thought of a governor being somewhat responsible for the education for our children. But I do recall not long ago, I think it was last year, that many of the school boards were fighting against some of the draconian laws that Gavin Newsom put in place. In essence, pushing pornography on our children in the school system, as well as libraries, as well as removing parental rights.
That's a valid point. And so I think what's interesting about the Huntington Beach City Council and their decision, it was really based on a couple of things. First of all, Huntington Beach is considered a charter city. So in the state of California, cities and counties are allowed to be what they call chartered, which means that they have the ability to act as a little bit of their own sovereign state or own sovereign, and for lack of a better term, country. So they do have guidelines that they need to follow with state guidelines, but have more flexibility in regards to choosing specific laws around their own governmental areas. So in this case, Huntington Beach, being a chartered city, has laws that has the flexibility to institute laws and then also possibly refuse the guidelines mandated by the state because they are a chartered city.
Yeah, see, we saw that this played out during 2018 when they were voting on the sanctuary state, and many of the chartered cities were firmly against it, and they passed ordinances similar to what you're going to be describing here.
And it's really interesting, the ordinance itself, when you look at the details of the ordinance, it does state the concern that the city council has on behalf of its citizens residing within the city boundaries, that AB 1955 has left the families at risk within that city. And so what it's stating is that although traditionally they don't have jurisdiction under educational law, they do have their direction as city council to protect those who live and reside within their city.
Excellent.
So that is their legal basis for instituting this ordinance as a chartered city.
Yeah, in your discussion with the mayor, did she bring up any potential legal issues that she'll be facing? And what resources will they bring to bear as far as attorneys to thwart off which we can anticipate coming from Sacramento? Did you cover that in your discussion?
Yes, she did mention that. She did mention the overreach of the state government. And that what was interesting is that during the public comments, when they were both considering voting on looking into an ordinance and actually approving the ordinance itself, many of the opponents of this effort of the 4326 stated that the city was overreaching itself, that this action was an overreach of government by the city, which actually isn't the case. The city is standing on its own principle as defined under the California Constitution as a chartered city with the ability and the right to protect its own residences. So with that being said, there is an accepted and expected response that the city is going to receive from the state, which of course is probably litigation. And what's great about Huntington Beach is that they are a very strong example of local government and the power of local government that was even conceived by the founders, way back when the Constitution was being drafted. In fact, I was just looking at the Federalist Papers, and that even within Federalist Paper 45, it states, written by Madison, there is a concern that the states within their given sovereignty would not align with some of the federal policies which were intended to protect the people of the nation. And here we have a very similar situation here with AB 1955, which many have said actually violates the 14th Amendment and the parental rights that have been by case law protected under that.
Okay, so let's go to this segment with the opposition expressing their concerns and on the record.
I'll give a gold star to whoever drafted the ordinance for creativity. This is some of the most tortured legal reasoning I have ever read.
To take our treasury, our tax dollars, and go spend them to litigate something that does not affect the city's corporate body. That is a breach of fiduciary, and I will not be supporting this.
This is fundamentally flawed. It overreaches the city's jurisdiction, misuses public funds, and is driven by political motivations that do not serve the best interests of Huntington Beach. This ordinance does not protect our children. It places them at greater risk. It does not empower parents. It undermines their relationship with their children. I urge the council to reject this ordinance and focus on real issues that truly matter to our city.
Councilmember Strickland.
If we're going to talk about political motivations, let's talk about the motivations coming from Sacramento, because let's face it, the government overreach that everybody talks about is the overreach coming from Sacramento and passing AB 1955. It's Sacramento that drove the wedge between children and their parents. No one has more at stake in the future of a child than that of the parent of that child. The children are not the property of the state. The children are under the parents' guidance. No one has more at stake in that children and that child's future than the parents. And so if we're going to talk about political motivations, let's talk about where they actually come from. They're coming from the state of California, Gavin Newsom, and their agenda. But at the end of the day, I'm going to fall on the side of parents. I'm going to fall on the side of parents' right to know about what's best for their children. And at the end of the day, we are doing the public's work. And I will repeat, we just passed an unbelievable contract for public safety to keep Huntington Beach safer. And again, this red herring is all about people on this dais who are running in November and not, you want to talk about political motivations, it's more about your election in November than what's on before us right here today.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion, we have a second. Please call the roll.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I'll call the roll. Councilmember Moser?
No.
Councilmember Bolton?
No.
Burns?
Aye.
Vandermark?
Yes.
Strickland?
Aye.
McKeon?
Yes.
Kalmick?
No.
Okay, motion passes 4-3. And with that,
Interesting opposition response. But now let's take a moment to watch and listen to our sponsors. Always remember to like, share, and follow. That's how we keep bringing you the unfiltered truth through Uncensored Beat. Be right back with you.
Welcome to Uncensored Beat.
I showed up. U.S. citizen is not permitted entry.
Over the next big attack.
Zelensky's seemingly fraudulent election.
Bilateral security agreement President Joe Biden signed.
Quebec, the communist capital of North America.
What do Ukrainians think about US? Some believe that the US is to blame for this war.
And welcome back. Let's continue with FLOR's interview with the mayor of Huntington Beach. Now, you've asked a series of questions, and I'm going to go to one question specific that I think is really important for the parents of Huntington Beach. Now, why this is so important, ask yourself that question. It's Surf City, USA, pretty famous in its own right. But what happens here in California to one of the most conservative cities can happen to you? So that's why we're covering this topic, and we're giving you solutions, discussion points. So you, when you start seeing the signs of this surfacing within your own city council, you know you're prepared, you know what to do from that point forward. Now, on to the questions you've asked. You asked her a specific question. What message are you sending the parents of Huntington Beach with this ordinance?
Well, we're letting the parents know we are here for you. We are here to help you. We want to send a message to the governor as well. Stay in your lane. He needs to focus on the homelessness, on the economy. He needs to focus on having all these businesses maybe want to stay and not flee our state, and let the parenting be done by the parents. And just let us be. We want to be able to raise our children in a way that suits us. You know, we can raise our children with any values, ethics, or morals that we see fit. We don't have to ask for the governor's permission or approval. And his values will probably not align with mine, and that's okay. I don't have to approve of his parenting, and I won't interfere, and he doesn't need to approve of my parenting, and he should not interfere. Let our families deal with something as personal as gender identity issues. We are the best suited people to deal with that.
So I think that's very interesting. It seems to me that the response of the Huntington Beach City Council is a product of what seems to be retaliation from the state through a series of educational laws that have been passed with extraordinary speed.
Laura, in your interview with the mayor, she brought up some very compelling points that are extremely emotional for a parent that are either experiencing this crisis here in California, which seems to be permeating throughout the rest of the state. So let's take some time and watch.
So can you give us a little background of what that ordinance is about?
So Governor Newsom signed AB 1955 into law. Pretty much it's forbidding the school boards from requiring that teachers inform the parents when their children have any gender identity issues or concerns. And I think that is, and he's stepping over his boundaries, and he's violating our constitutional rights to raise our children how we see fit. And I feel it's time to stand up and push back. If there's one thing that should unite us all, is standing together and saying we will protect our parental rights, and we will stop at nothing to protect our children. And I think this affects our children more than anyone.
Well, many have said that the ordinance is outside the jurisdiction of the city and really falls under the purview of schools. What is your response to that?
So that is correct. We have no jurisdiction over schools, but we are elected representatives, and I'm focusing on moms and dads who feel they have been hurt by AB 1955. Essentially what they're doing is, like, I'll just give you an example of why this is so important. I was a young mom. I was still in my teens. I was afraid to tell my parents. While I was at the clinic, talking to the clinic, this lady who had absolutely no connection to me, she was giving me some advice. Have I listened to her advice, my daughter would have never existed. But then I went to my parents. I went to my aunts, my grandma. We all sat down. We spoke together. We talked about it. We were upset. They were disappointed. The fact of knowing that my life was about to become 10 times more difficult because now I had to worry about 2 lives was hitting us. But after we talked and we worked through our issues, they said, okay, this is where we are. Let's figure out a way to move forward. My parents were given the opportunity to parent. They were given the opportunity to participate. And when a teacher gets to decide whether they think a parent is worthy of knowing what's going on with their child or not, it becomes a problem. Well, what criteria are they going to use to decide whether a parent's reacting the right way or not? There is no right or wrong way to act or behave or react to this. So I think that is unfair to the parent, it's unfair to the child, and it's unfair to the teachers who are being put in this position.
Yeah, it's a very odd position for teachers to be placed. I've been through different meetings, most of them within the school boards, different school boards who are just fighting against AB 1955. And it's interesting that the teachers are put in the middle of this when really it has very little to do with education, in my opinion.
It has nothing to do with education. And I've spoken to a lot of teachers because they want to know what it is that's on my mind. Why am I doing this? And I said, we are parents. We have a right to know. And the majority of their reactions have been, I agree. Thank you. I just want to come to school to teach. I'm not looking to raise somebody else's child. I have my own family to worry about. And this is a big, heavy burden to place on a teacher. Now, the one teacher who did not agree with me, she said, well, I'm not outing my students. I said, okay, well, who exactly are you outing them to? Because if you have a child, let's say a boy wants to transition to a girl or is wondering or wants to explore whether he wants to be a girl or not. So he'll start wearing clothes, change their different clothes, change his name to a woman's name. Every child in that school is going to know, because at the school they're going to be dressed one way and be addressed in one way. All those students are going to know, all their parents are going to know, the whole neighborhood is going to know, and the only one that's being kept in the dark are the people who are the most qualified to take care of this child, and that is the parents. Right. You are effectively just excluding the parents. To me, this is a direct attack on parents, and it is violating our Constitution.
So what do you say to those that believe that this ordinance is a government overreach?
The actual government overreach is AB 1955, the law that Gavin Newsom signed. That is an overreach. What we are doing is pushing back against that overreach. I mean, they can say whatever they want, but at the end of the day, we have to stand up and push back at some point. And if we're not going to stand up and protect our parental rights, in order for us to protect our children, then we're lost. This country's done.
I think what Mayor Vandermark is speaking about is her concerns over what seems to be a series of, for lack of a better word, retaliatory legislation that's being approved at breakneck speed by the state of California, many of it within the realm of education. It tends to also limit access, parental access to, and feedback in regards to both the curriculum as well as personal information related to students. So those, a couple of those examples of the legislation include 1078, where the state had a firmer grip of the specific curriculum that each local school districts could utilize within their schools. Before last year, with the passage of 1078, all the districts had that flexibility to choose the specific type of curriculum that would help meet the state standards for education. And that ended as of the passage of 1078, which will take into effect next year. Also, you have, of course, AB 1955, which then also the state is then removing access to student information with the restrictions on the policies for reporting. This final bill that was actually passed a couple days ago, AB 1825, known as the Freedom to Read Act, which is passed on August 29th. It was actually in response to, quote, concerns that were being spread throughout the different school districts of the state about content that was available both in the public schools as well as in the school libraries for children, for minors. And the writer of this bill, Senator David Min, has explained this bill to be, quote, a law fighting against book bans that silence communities of color and LGBTQ voices, end quote. That's a direct quote from his website.
But unfortunately, we're bringing our children into this, and one of the key roles as a parent is to protect the child. And I've seen the erosion of those protections clearly on the shoulders of Gavin Newsom. But I think we have to do as parents, as concerned grandparents, as brothers and sisters, and seeing what was happening in the state of California and the erosion of our rights, we need to make a very strong statement.
It seems like with the passage of the laws we had mentioned just previously, they were passed exceptionally fast. And instead of being just generated out of the blue, they seem to be very specific to reactions that were actually showing up throughout the state, reactions that were brought forth by many concerned parents and guardians. And a lot of interactions occurring within the realm of school boards. So it seems to me that the stance and the message that the city of Huntington Beach is saying that in effort to protect citizens, they are willing to extend their rights as a governing council to do so, and that it is within their purview, within their power, since all other attempts that were established that are in law have been continually broken down by a series of laws sent forth by the state. And again, I think in our previous podcast, we were talking about the color of law, which is actually a violation that could be utilized by someone within a public office, utilizing that public position to overcome the interests of the citizens that that public office should represent.
That's interesting analysis. And so let's talk about solutions. What do we have now that will provide resources, possible solutions for those that have embraced this idea and these issues that we face here in the state of California, the erosion of our rights? What can they do?
Well, I would say if you reside within a chartered city or a chartered county, that you as citizens have the right to request that your council follow suit and remind them of their fiduciary duty. I know Orange County is a chartered county, and so even though they do have, again, traditionally this would be out of their jurisdiction, it is up to the county to discern whether this is within the rights and concerns of their citizens, and of course within the citizens' interest to make sure that the county is aware of that.
So are we talking a chartered county or chartered city?
Well, as far as I understand, the provisions are very similar to the county and city ordinance. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but there are certain provisions that an ordinance could be passed at either level if it's considered, if the chartered county or city considers what the state has set forth, an emergency situation, which actually is a endangerment to public health and safety.
Okay, very good. Now, there are certain organizations that the viewers can go to. One will be California Parents Union, which you're looking right at the executive director. She'll be more than glad to address any questions you may have, get you engaged, give you the information so you can go to your local community. If not that, you can go and speak with your friends and family about these issues that we're facing here, state of California. And of course, what happens here in California will eventually show up in your neighborhoods. So with that said, any parting remarks before we say goodbye, and we'll do a kind of a segue into our next episode.
Yes, just to remind everyone who may feel like this issue is too big of a problem for them, that really the citizen body has the capability to put forth a solution. We still live in a country that supports that, and with organizations like the California Parents Union, you can gather as a group and make a lot more things possible that you think were impossible.
Very good. In our next episode, we're going to speak with the founder and the chairman of the board for the California Parents Union. Tracy Henderson, which happens to be an attorney, has been fighting for your rights as well as your children's rights. So stand by for that. We should be serving that up here shortly. So thank you all for listening. Remember to share, like, and subscribe. And as always, go to the Uncensored Beat for the unfiltered truth.
Welcome to Uncensored Beat.
I showed up. U.S. citizen is not permitted entry.
Over the next big attack.
Zelensky's seemingly fraudulent election.
Bilateral security agreement President Joe Biden signed.
Quebec, the communist capital of North America.
What do Ukrainians think about US? Some believe that the US is to blame for this war.